And here's Sark. Here's how he began his media availability yesterday on this coach's conference call, saying, before you ask me any questions, I want to address something.
I'd like to comment on something before I get into our team, something that has been bothering me now over the past few weeks, and that is people reporting or insinuating there's a possibility I could leave the University of Texas, and that is absolutely false and untrue. I'm not going anywhere. Can we please stop putting things out there that you have absolutely zero evidence on, and then can we please stop retweeting, putting it back out there as if it's true, as if it's the gospel. So moving forward, when some Joe Blow decides to put something on social media out there, we all don't run with it. Can we all agree on that? And if you have a question about my future with the University of Texas, ask me, ask Chris Del Conte. He'll be more than happy to take your call so that we can set the record straight.
All right, so that's pretty adamant. And I would also add, because that was a cut from ESPN, who had access to that conference call, they cut out a piece because Sark went in the middle of all that, because that was kind of the front and the back. He said, but at this point, I feel like it's important that I do this now because it's important to our team. It's important to our university. I've had no discussions, not with my agent, not with the university, not with any other school, not with any NFL team about going anywhere else. I came here to win championships. I've got 2 kids enrolled at the university, 1 in law school, 1 on our team. I've got a 3rd that hopefully will decide to enroll at Texas next fall. My wife and I just had our son here in Austin. This is our home. We came here to win championships. We built a damn good football program over 5 years that we've been here. We've been to 2 college football playoffs. We won a Big 12 championship, and we're in the SEC championship game in year 1. We've had 23 players drafted the last 2 years, which is more than any other school in the country, and our team GPA is at an all-time high, and that's when it picked back up. So can we please stop putting things out there? And several of, I'm assuming, Texas A&M fans, which is fine. We appreciate your opinions. So it sounds like a certain former baseball coach who vehemently denied rumors of leaving the university, and that would be Jim Schlossnagle.
Yes.
But let me tell you the difference on that.
Okay.
If you go back to that spring and into the summer when Jim Schlossnagle bolted A&M after being in Omaha and a game away from winning the College World Series, we were on the radio telling you, Trev Alberts, you're asleep at the wheel here.
Right.
When this season is over, whenever it's over, Chris Del Conte, who's a close friend of Jim Schlossnagle from their days at TCU, you don't have a good relationship with Schloss. We were reporting real things that were true. That Trev Alberts came in. Remember, Ross Bjork was out. Schloss had a great relationship with Ross Bjork. He was kind of shoved out after the football coaching hire mess with Mark Stoops and then Mike Elko, and then he went off to Ohio State. And Trev Alberts came in. And whatever you think of the job Trev is doing, at that point, he wasn't building relationships with his coaches. And Schloss was getting the baseball stadium funding, and he fired some people that without telling Schloss. And so Schloss was looking. And I don't care what, but that was actual reporting. And I know Diana Rossini does great reporting, and she put that out there, and Sark denied it. This was Desmond Howard taking his trash out. And I say shame on Des, because if that was, I said Joe Schmo, he called him Joe Blow. Joe Blow. It's So
tomato, right?
Well, look, I'll just say this. After that statement where he was, he didn't, no one asked him about it. He could have ignored it, and he could have said nothing because it was just a Desmond Howard taking the trash out thing. Black helicopters, he could have taken that tact, and he didn't. He attacked it. And again, it could be for the now, but I believe Sark wants to be here.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, then you guys can come back at me. Just like I said back then when Jim Schlossnagle left, if Trev Alberts doesn't do something quick, the minute that season's over, Chris Del Conte is going to be at his doorstep and make him say no about the Texas job. And that's exactly what happened.
Right.
But we were telling you that and reporting that. This is just like, and as I said, Sark went back and said, look, this is they're weaponizing my future to hurt our recruiting efforts now.
Sure.
Texas is wobbly right now, and it helps when you're trying to fight recruiting deals. Now, think about this in Horns at Half Past. On that same conference call, Lane Kiffin was on there. And he happens to be a big news. And unlike the Pat McAfee show the day before, they actually asked him some questions about, 2 days before, on Monday. Lane Kiffin was actually asked, and there's a guy named Trey Wallace who covers Ole Miss who had this report back. We don't have audio of what Lane Kiffin said or didn't say, but listen to Trey Wallace on his interaction and the interaction with Lane Kiffin during that same conference call.
Guys, it got very contentious on that teleconference. I have never heard a coach squirm as much as I just heard Lane Kiffin. And he was called to the table, boys. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, I get that he hasn't answered some of these questions presented to him, but us national media members couldn't get on there quick enough to ask him certain questions that I don't think he could run away from. Now, the thing is, he didn't really answer anything, but you could tell that it was getting a little rough. Like, he was asked whether Ole Miss has asked him for an answer regarding his future. He said, I'm not going to stay on what I've done for 6 years and not talk about those situations. He understands why we ask these questions, guys. But at the same time, when he's saying that, why would I not expect to coach against Mississippi State next week? Do you guys know something that I don't know? Am I going to be fired? Like, this is what it was coming to. He understands what we're doing. Like, guys, he was asked straight up what his family took away from their visit to Gainesville and Baton Rouge. And he said, I'm not getting in on any speculation or stories that have to do with other jobs. I'm just telling you guys, I thought this thing could go quiet for a couple of days. But after that call, it could be a scenario where just, all right, let's go to Oxford and see what happens. Like, that went really bad. Again, he was presented an opportunity to say, I will be the Ole Miss coach in 2026, guys. Stop asking me the darn question. And he didn't. He said,
all right, so what he didn't say means more than what he did. And then, as we've said, the reporting out of Ole Miss is that the folks in Oxford are ready to, cut him loose and, not dangle all the way to January, when, however long Ole Miss plays. But, does that cost them a chance to win a national championship? As we said, you got to do what's best for the program to be on a coaching search in January because Lane Kiffin takes the LSU job. And I think the other part of that is LSU and Florida want an answer too. Now, they'll wait if he's their guy and they think they're going to win the beauty pageant or win the bidding war for Lane Kiffin. And it's funny because 1 year ago at this time, Lane Kiffin was on the hot seat and everybody wanted him fired because his team lost 3 games and kind of like where Sark is right now. And now he's the buzz. But that's interesting to me, and he didn't take the chance to say it. And this is why, how about this conversation that's going on now? And, whether they'll probably win the Egg Bowl, but they're playing at Starkville. There's a lot of distractions. This is all going on. If you can think, we're talking about it every morning. What are these going on on Jock's Radio there in the Deep South and Paul Feinbaum's show and throughout Oxford? This is the conversation. If the players get distracted at all, Texas knows very well Mississippi State's got a pretty capable team. They're not good, but they can scare the heck out of you. But think about if they were to win that game closely or lose it. They're still probably in, but here's a story that's percolating in conversation. What if the committee decided if Lane Kiffin, if they move on from Lane Kiffin and promote Joe Judge, the former New York Giants head coach, who's their quarterback's coach right now, or Pete Golding, their defensive coordinator, could the committee who selects, because they're not going to win the SEC championship, could the committee Florida State them? Remember when Florida State was undefeated and didn't make the 4-team playoff because their quarterback got hurt? And Jordan Travis didn't play, and now it's a different team? Could you argue that that's the head coach? If you took Nick Saban away from Alabama, or Kirby Smart was no longer at Georgia going in, it's an at-large bid.
I wouldn't think they could do that if they were to win this game and be 11-1. Your only loss is to Georgia, who's a top 4 team.
But Lane Kiffin was your coach. I mean, the precedent was with a 4-team playoff.
Yeah,
and they did it though with Florida State. They told Florida State, "You're not the same team."
But Florida State was in the ACC, and they didn't have any really quality wins at that point.
But they were 13-0.
They were, but everybody else was the only other team that, the worst record that got in was a one-loss team.
Point being, I know you disagree. I'm saying the point being the precedent they sent, and that's fine to disagree.
That was a 4-team playoff. It just is a whole different format. That's the thing.
But they said you are a different team without your quarterback.
Sure, no, they did.
You're going to say you're not a different team without your head coach?
I mean, if you're 11-1, I get it, but I don't think you can take that away from an SEC team that's 11-1.
Oh, I understand. I'm just saying, good Lane, is that?
I get what you're saying. Sure, yes, they can make pivots as to you're not in because at that point, right? FSU undefeated, schedule not as good as some of these SEC teams. Because Alabama at that point was the team that got in over them ahead, and then Georgia as well didn't make it that year. So I get what you're saying. Completely worth mentioning. I think a loss would have to be had before you can really say, hey, you're out of here. If they lose the Egg Bowl, which is a game they can lose, if they lose sight of it, and coach is in Baton Rouge or wherever else.
Well, think about
10-2.
They don't play the Egg Bowl this weekend. They play it next Friday, the same day Texas plays A&M.
Right, day after Thanksgiving. Right.
The reporting out of Oxford is that Ole Miss is ready to, if they don't get the answer they're looking for, they're going to move on now. Like we want, the word ultimatum has never been confirmed, but it's been reported that there was an ultimatum, and that the AD, that's why the family is touring houses in Baton Rouge and Gainesville, because they don't want to wait till the end of the year because I'm assuming Lane Kiffin has said something along the lines of, well, I don't want to sign this contract yet. Well, and they're saying to him, look, we have a bye week. Explore your options.
Yeah.
If there are options, talk to your agent, talk to your family. We need an answer before the final game. And, well, what if he doesn't give him an answer? If you make a quote-unquote ultimatum or you demand an answer and he doesn't give you one, doesn't a shoe have to drop? And if they were to fire him and say, okay, we're cutting our losses, we're promoting Joe Judge, and we're going forward, and yes, because of all that distraction, what a mess that would be, they lose that game.
Right.
Then they for sure could be held out.
That is where you could see that.
Yeah. I could also see it if, look, Florida State had a very strong argument at 13-0 to say, yeah, we won every game. We won the ACC. We're here. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You can't keep us out just because we have a backup quarterback. We're not like we're going to be out there without a quarterback. Probably the worst thing that hurt them was everybody saw their backup quarterback in the ACC championship game. But I mean, there is a precedent for this. That is an at-large team, not a guaranteed bid, automatic qualifier as a conference champion.
Right.
You are a different team without your head coach.
Yeah, I just think in that they would need to. I get what you're saying. If they lose that game with Joe Judge at the helm, now we're talking about a different story. Just because their resume, you have 5 teams in at that point. Maybe it would then be down to 4, but that's 11-1 with those wins.
If Texas can win out, beat the Aggies, and put themselves in that spot, they decide that they're going to dock Mississippi State for how this has gone, and Lane Kiffin for playing the field, and playing options.
I mean, there were 6 teams that year when we go back to it. That's why there's a 12-team format. I mean, Georgia, they could have won a championship that year. Now,
I understand
Michigan
that.
fans
Georgia got left
that,
out.
you know
I'm
what
just
I mean?
saying the same committee, and it's
right.
some new faces, but mostly the same people.
No. Totally get what you're getting at.
We have to judge you on what you're going to be and who you are now, not what you've been.
Right.
And a lot of people disagreed with that, especially in the ACC.
Well, and then if they come out there and they show, hey, we can't beat Mississippi State, who has 5 wins right now.
Well, even what if it's a struggle?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. I know it's a week ahead, but I'm just fascinated by this because
food for thought for sure.
Because there's too much smoke here. Because like the Sark thing, and people are still texting saying, "Can you buy in that strong language?" Look, Sark, there's been no reporting in a month now, and for Sark to come out that adamant and talk about his kids and his baby and all this. Yeah. I mean, if he jumps out from here, that would be
It sounds like he's going to be here in 2026, unlike Lane Kiffin.
Right.
Because Lane Kiffin's not addressing 2026.
I don't think Lane Kiffin's going to be there. The question now comes to
where? Right.
Is Ole Miss going to do something about it?
Right.
And not let him coach this thing out? Because that is the conversation. Because, again, back to here in Horns at Half Past, how this affects Texas. If Texas can win out and they're going to open up a spot because Mississippi State or Ole Miss has this going on, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I'm saying for Texas, you need to win out and put yourself in that position to be that next team. So we'll see. But as for Ole Miss, the argument is, okay, there's no good decision here. Let's be fair about that. If you're the athletic director and the president and the people in charge at Ole Miss, in 2022, Lane Kiffin did the same thing, flirted with another team in your own conference with Auburn, and they smacked him on the hand for it. And Lane Kiffin publicly apologized, said, I handled that poorly. And now here he is again, 3 years later, doing the same thing and won't give an answer. And in this environment and this calendar, if you go all the way to the college football playoff semifinals, play through the new year into January, and then lose, don't win the championship, and Lane Kiffin then bolts to one of these schools, now you have to try to hire a coach and a coaching staff, and you have a whole. This is what the conversations that are happening at big tables and on conference calls at Ole Miss. If this guy's planning to leave and he won't give us an answer, he's got an entire month to recruit this roster to wherever he's going.
In the same conference, because he's going to go to an SEC school, whether it's Florida or LSU.
Against a team we're going to play.
Right.
And, is he going to put his best foot forward here? If he's going somewhere else, I think Lane Kiffin. But again, let's also say Lane Kiffin not only did this to Ole Miss, his current employer, 3 years ago, he's been a snake in the grass before. Mm-hmm. Remember when he walked out of a press conference at Tennessee to go to USC?
I do.
I'm just saying. I don't know how this plays out. I'm fascinated by it because, Lane seems like he's matured and, all that. But at the same time, that's a tough spot for a program to be in because you're a Michigan fan. You remember what happened when Michigan won the national championship and 2 weeks later Jim Harbaugh took the Chargers job. It ain't easy to find a coach.
Nope.
or even there's no coaches, so you promote Sharon Moore.
Right.
Of course, Jim Harbaugh took most of the staff with him.
Yeah, he did. Strength coach, took Jesse Minter.
Well, you don't think that Lane Kiffin's planning on taking all his guys with him?
Right.
So now you're Ole Miss, the roster recruitment, all that in this day and age of the portal, you got to think long and hard about that. And I understand it sounds crazy to fire a coach who's got his team going to the playoff.
But distractions are just completely there now.
If you think a Joe Judge or a Pete Golding could run the show and maximize this team.
Because this team is pretty damn good.
They are.
Pretty damn good.
So, again, it's not a one-man show. And I'll just say this, and we'll wrap this up and come back, take your thoughts. 512-834-1027. Chris Phillips, or CP, Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered will join us in our next hour, our weekly visit with Chris about this. What is he hearing from the whole SEC about all this chatter? And how does he think Ole Miss will handle this? But, I mean, you're trying to choose the best wrong. The best bad decision you can make here, and you got to kind of bet. You get the thing I would be doing if I were the leader at Ole Miss. I would say, what's best for the program? The immediate gratification of maybe winning a championship, which they've never won, but is that a guarantee? No. And if Lane Kiffin is distracted and his wife is home shopping in Gainesville, you got to do what's right. I mean, there's one person is not bigger than your whole program. That just has to be the mindset. And this is fascinating stuff. And the fact that yesterday got really contentious on that conference call and people were just firing questions at him and he's hemming and hawing and doesn't want to answer it. I mean, as they said, he had a point blank opportunity to say, I'm going to be the head coach at Ole Miss, and he did not.
And if you look at this, if they were to, they're a team that is capable. There's a lot of teams this season compared to in the past that are able to win a championship or at least get close to a championship this year. This team's capable of doing so. And if, let's say hypothetically, Lane is allowed to coach the team, and he goes and wins the title and then said, I'm out of here. I mean, can you imagine something along those lines? How many players would want to follow that man if he's like, well, they just wanted Ole Miss? He could do that in Gainesville. He can do that in Baton Rouge for sure.
And guess what? The paychecks are bigger in Gainesville.
Oh, yeah.
Say I'm crazy. That's the current reality we live in.
Resources, more of those. Stadiums are bigger. I like all the things. I mean, everything is there.
And, deep pockets at Florida and LSU, deeper than Ole Miss has.